Welcome back to the library. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of World of Warcraft's history, as we dive into the lore of the Arathi Empire. The Arathi Empire was the first human kingdom to emerge in Azeroth, a unification of various human tribes that formed a powerful empire. For over 1,000 years, it thrived in the northern regions of what we now know as the Eastern Kingdoms. However, as history often shows, empires rise and empires fall, and eventually the Arathi Empire fractured, lost to the pages of history. Yet, with the recent discoveries in the caverns of Khaz Algar, it's clear that the Arathi Empire lived on. So, for that reason, we're going to delve into the lore surrounding this lost kingdom and explore the question, who are the Arathi people? Before we dive into the lore of the Arathi Empire, I have to say that the human storyline in World of Warcraft has always been one of my favourite parts. So I was especially excited when today's video sponsor, U2's, sent over a prototype of one of their brand new limited edition products. U2's are industry leaders in the world of collectible plushies and figures. In collaboration with World of Warcraft for the release of The War Within, they are launching 3 limited edition, officially licensed vinyl figures to add to their already popular World of Warcraft line, including the King of Stormwind, Anduin Wrynn, which I have here in my hands, the former war chief of the Horde, Thrall, and of course one of the other main characters in The War Within, Alleria Windrunner. And I've got to say, I absolutely love my Anduin figure. The attention to detail is incredible, and because of that, I think I'll keep him front and center on my desk. So if you'd like to grab your own U2's figure, the War Within collection is available to pre-order now on U2's.com, and you can get 10% off by using the link on screen and in the description below, or by using code Karazhan at checkout. Now these figures will ship in March next year, and once they're sold out, they are gone for good. So if you want to get your hands on one, you're going to have to act fast. And again, a big thank you to U2's for supporting the channel. To fully understand the origins of the Arathi Empire, it's crucial to look back at the roots of humanity, which trace all the way back to a race known as the Vrykul. These towering, iron-skinned beings were created by the Titans during the Ordering of Azeroth. Thousands of years ago, after the old gods were defeated and imprisoned, the Keepers, with the help of the Forge of Wills, crafted the Vrykul as a part of the Titan Forged. And their purpose was shared with the Tol'vir, another Titan-forged race. Their role was to safeguard Titan facilities, such as Ulduar. However, the Vrykul's history would soon take a dark turn. Around 20,000 years ago, Loken, one of the Keepers, had an affair with Sif, the wife of his brother, Thorim. Manipulated by the imprisoned old god Yogg-Saron, and in a moment of fear and desperation, Loken accidentally killed Sif. Horrified by his actions but too afraid to admit the truth to Thorim, Loken falsely blamed Arngrim, king of the Frost Giants, which set Thorim against his former allies. This conflict led to a war between Thorim and Arngrim's forces, and in an effort to try and stop the fighting, Loken used the Forge of Wills to create a new and powerful army. However, Yogg-Saron had secretly corrupted the Forge with the Curse of Flesh, a curse with the ability to transform Titan-forged beings from their stone and metal forms into creatures of flesh and blood. The curse was so powerful it even affected earlier generations of Titan-forged, marking the beginning of the Vrykul's transformation. In the wake of Loken's betrayal, many Titan-forged, including some of the Vrykul, were exiled from Ulduar, and they spread out across northern Kalimdor. In response, the Keeper Tyr and his allies stole the discs of Norgannon from Loken, discs that held critical information about the Titan-forged, and proceeded to lead a group of innocent Titan-forged, including large numbers of Vrykul, south to study the data and formulate a plan to defeat Loken. Along the way, Cathraxi monsters sent by Loken caught up with them in the land that is now known as Tirisfal Glades. In the ensuing battle, Tyr sacrificed himself to save his companions. Deeply moved by this sacrifice, the Vrykul who had travelled with him settled in Tirisfal and decided to stay to guard Tyr's tomb. They named the region Tirisfal, meaning Tyr's fall, in his honour. Over the centuries, the remaining Vrykul clans in the north continued to thrive. One of the most powerful of these clans, the Dragonflayer clan, noticed their iron bodies slowly turning to flesh. Under King Yimmeron's rule, around 15,000 years ago, the Curse of Flesh took a more troubling turn. Vrykul children began being born even smaller and weaker. in comparison to their parents. These children, considered runts by many, sparked a deep divide among the Vrykul. Some called for their execution to preserve what was left of their purity, while others pleaded for mercy, believing that they were still their children. Ymiron sided with those demanding the death of the malformed infants, decreeing that parents must kill their afflicted young or send them for execution. Now, not all Vrykul could bring themselves to kill their children. Defying Ymiron's orders, some parents secretly fled with their infants. Travelling far from Northrend to the land known as Tirisfal Glades, they sought refuge with the descendants of the Vrykul who had followed Tyr and settled there centuries earlier, believing the land to be a safe haven. Eventually, these children grew into their own culture and tribes, and they would later become known as the Humans. It wasn't until around about 3,000 years ago that the Humans started to rise as a more prominent force. In the lands we now know as Lordaeron, in the northern territories of the new continent formed after the Great Sundering, numerous human tribes emerged, ranging from small groups to larger communities. Little is known about these early human tribes, except that conflict with each other was frequent, with constant battles over land, resources and beliefs. However, legends tell of 3 tribes that thrived above the rest. The Alterachi, led by Igneous, lived in the rugged Alterac Mountains. Although considered uncouth and savage by other humans, they were known for their unmatched bravery and their strength. Another tribe dominated the Tirisfal Glades, made up of noble, regimented warriors led by their renowned fighter, Lordaeron. This Tirisfal tribe was seen as more refined than the mountain-dwelling humans. And lastly, there was the Arathi tribe, who resided on the northeastern borders between human lands and the Amani Troll Empire. Known for their fierce warrior culture and long-standing skirmishes with the native forest trolls, the Arathi were respected across the lands for preserving the oldest traditions of weaponsmithing. 2,800 years before the events of the Dark Portal, troll invasions into human lands became more frequent and aggressive. The Arathi realised that humanity could not survive a true war against the Amani trolls if they remained divided. Thoradin, the warlord of the Arathi, declared himself king and set out to unite the scattered human tribes under one banner to form a stronger front in the event of a troll invasion. Thoradin brought the Alterachi tribe into his fold by defeating their leader Igneous in a duel. The humans of Tirisfal, however, were more difficult to persuade. Unlike the Alterachi, they could not be won over by shows of force. To gain their allegiance, Thoradin appealed to their deep spiritual beliefs, leading a pilgrimage to their shrines and sacred groves. He participated in their rituals and wore a silver hand pendant as a symbol of his respect to their beliefs. At the end of the pilgrimage, Thoradin met with Lordaeron, the leader of the Tirisfal tribe. Thoradin promised that if they joined his cause, he would adopt and spread their mystical traditions among the Arathi. To seal this oath, Thoradin cut his palm and mixed his blood with the earth of Tirisfal, declaring, "Between our people, let this be the only blood we spill." Moved by this gesture, the humans of Tirisfal bent their knee, and Lordaeron became one of Thoradin's key generals. After uniting the human tribes, King Thoradin of Arathor sought to establish a new capital, and according to legend, one night his father appeared to him in a dream, cloaked in the pelt of a black wolf, and foretold that Thoradin's people would thrive if he built his capital in an arid region to the southeast. Thoradin journeyed to what is now known as the Arathi Highlands, and, as the story goes, spotted a black wolf roaming the land. On that very spot, commanded his masons to begin constructing Strom. Word of this new fortress city started to spread among the human tribes across the land, and many started travelling there, seeking safety. With the humans united and the trolls gaining power, the stage was set for one of the bloodiest conflicts in Azeroth's history, forever remembered in the history books as the Troll Wars. The early stages of this conflict were not initially the humans to fight. The war began between the Amani trolls and the High Elves, who had built their kingdom of Quel'Thalos on sacred Amani ruins. Meanwhile, the Amani trolls spent centuries plotting their revenge, though their efforts were hampered by infighting and the absence of a strong leader. That all changed 2,800 years before the Dark Portal, when the Zandalari trolls intervened. Seeing themselves as protectors of all troll kind, the Zandalari sought to revive the Amani strength and help reassert dominance over the Eastern Kingdoms. Aided by the Zandalari, the Amani sent small warbands to test the High Elves' defences, hiding their true numbers. After a series of successful skirmishes, they launched a full-scale assault on Quel'Thalas. Tens of thousands of trolls, empowered by their loa, swept through the forests, devastating the outer reaches of the Elven Kingdom. The elves suffered heavy casualties and rapidly lost ground. Word of the ongoing war eventually reached Arathor. Initially, King Thoradin and his generals chose not to intervene. However, as the situation grew more desperate, the High Elf King sent envoys to Strom, requesting aid. The ambassadors warned Thoradin that once the trolls finished with Quel'Thalas, they would turn their attention to Arathor. Realizing their forces were insufficient to defeat the trolls in a direct confrontation, Thoradin and his advisors agreed they needed magic to stand a chance. After negotiations, the two sides reached an agreement. In exchange for human military support, Elven Magi would teach 100 humans the ways of magic. Meanwhile, Thoradin began preparing for the upcoming offensive by establishing key strongholds, including Alterac Fortress at the base of the Alterac Mountains and several forts in Eastweald, the area now known as the Eastern and the Western Plaguelands. After months of training the humans, Arathor launched its offensive. Over 20,000 human soldiers assembled at Alterac Fortress, and then marched towards Quel'Thalas under King Thoradin's command. While the Magi remained hidden at the fortress, after weeks of marching, the Arathi forces struck the southern flank of the Amani trolls near Quel'Thalas, coordinating with the elves, who launched a counterattack from the north. Jintha, the Amani leader, underestimated the humans, viewing them as only a minor nuisance. He turned his focus on them, intending to quickly wipe them out before returning to finish the elves. Thoradin's forces began a slow retreat toward Alterac, with the following weeks consisting of fierce fighting as the Amani pursued them. Meanwhile, the elves pressed the trolls from the rear. At one point, the Amani gained too much ground, threatening to outflank and overwhelm the retreating humans. To prevent this, General Lordaeron and 500 warriors volunteered to stay behind in a narrow valley, sacrificing their lives to hold off the trolls and allow the rest of the Arathi army to continue south. This selfless act had a profound impact on Azeroth's history. In a classic butterfly effect, one of the lives saved by Lordaeron's sacrifice was his sister, Merildar, who we'll come back to later on in the story. Eventually, the human forces reached Alterac Fortress and prepared for the final Amani assault. Once the human and elven forces believed they had weakened the Amani ranks, they unleashed their secret weapon. 100 human mages emerged from Alterac Fortress and, together with elven sorcerers, did something unprecedented. They combined their powers to cast one single devastating spell. A massive column of fire rained down from the sky, engulfing the Amani army. The magical flames prevented the trolls from regenerating their wounds and burned both the trolls and their loa from the inside out. Jintha was among the first to fall, and without their leader, the trolls panicked and fled north. The human and the elven forces pursued them, killing any trolls they found, and thus the troll wars ended in victory for the humans and the elves. The once powerful Amani Empire, which had ruled much of northern Lordaeron, was reduced to fragmented remnants in eastern Quel'Thalas and the southern hinterlands. For Quel'Thalas and Arathor, the Troll Wars ushered in a period of prosperity. In thanks, the High Elves pledged eternal loyalty to Arathor and Thoradin's lineage. This bond led to more than 2,000 years of peaceful relations. In Arathor, the original 100, the group of humans who learned arcane magic from the High Elves, began spreading their knowledge of magic throughout the Empire. This rise in the use of arcane power enabled Arathor to expand its influence across Lordaeron, and led to the establishment of new cities like Dalaran, which eventually grew into an independent city-state. The origins of the Church of the Holy Light can also be traced back to this period. As we mentioned earlier, among those saved by General Lordaeron's sacrifice during the retreat to Alterac was his sister, Merildar. After the war, she dedicated herself to caring for wounded veterans and began receiving visions of the light from the Naru in the Great Dark Beyond. These Naru visions taught her how to use holy magic, and she, along with others who shared the same experiences, started a religious movement centered around the light. Over time, this movement became the dominant human faith. With relations with the elves stronger than ever and the troll threat nearly eliminated, the Arathi Empire flourished, becoming one of the greatest human kingdoms in Azeroth's history. In the centuries that followed, more and more city-states emerged across the continent. Among them was Gilneas and Alterac. On an island south of the imperial capital Strom, Kultiras was established, thriving on a prosperous economy of fishing, shipping, and trade. Meanwhile, Dalaran became the primary hub of magical learning throughout the land. Despite their unique customs and economic systems, these four city-states remained loyal to the unifying authority of Strom, the central heart of the vast Arathi Empire. But, as history has taught us, eventually every empire must fall. As Arathor's economy flourished, its foundations began to crumble. The empire lasted for over 1,000 years, and 1,200 years before the events at the Dark Portal, the nobles of Strom, seeking greener lands, spiritual purity, and enlightenment, decided to leave the barren surroundings of the imperial capital despite the objections of the other royalty. To the north of Dalaran, the general populace founded a new city-state called Lordaeron, named after the region, and it quickly became a centre for religious travellers and those seeking peace and security. Meanwhile, the remaining descendants of the Arathi left the deteriorating Strom behind and journeyed south, past the rocky terrain of Khaz Algar. After many seasons of travel, they settled in the southern part of the continent, naming the region Azeroth and founding the Kingdom of Stormwind, which soon became a powerful and independent state in its own right. Back in Strom, only a few loyal warriors remained to guard the ancient city. The city's few remaining ruling families, including the Trollbanes, rebuilt the crumbling capital and renamed it to Stromgarde. Though Stromgarde developed into a nation of its own, it never regained the glory of its past. Over time, the 7 city-states each prospered in their own way, but the Empire of Arathor had effectively fallen apart. As these new nations developed their own customs and beliefs, they grew increasingly isolated from one another, and the unity achieved under King Thoradin was lost. And with that, the Empire of Arathor, the kingdom that started as a small human tribe, had fallen. But recent events have revealed that the history books are about to be rewritten, as the chapter of the Arathi Empire was unknowingly left unfinished. In the present day, nearly 1,500 years after the dissolution of the Kingdom of Arathor, the champions of Azeroth have ventured into the depths of Khaz Algar, a recently discovered and long forgotten subterranean continent located off the western shores of Pandaria. One of the regions that sits in the depths of Khaz Algar is Hallowfall. This subterranean zone lies beneath and west of the Ringing Deeps, north and above Azj-Kahet. Hallowfall features verdant plateaus and river canyons bordered on the west by the vast undersea, all contained within an enormous cavern. The area is illuminated by Beladar, a massive crystal lodged in the cavern ceiling which provides light, warmth and sustenance for the vegetation, creating a vibrant environment reminiscent of the surface. What's even more thrilling and vital to our story today is that Hallowfall is home to the Hallowfall Arathi, an expedition hailing from the ancient Arathi Empire. But how could this be if the Arathi Empire fell millennia ago, with only noble bloodlines and carefully preserved fortresses remaining as its legacy? How is it possible that members of the Arathi Empire are suddenly resurfacing, excuse the pun, in this newly discovered world? The answer lies buried in secrets, long forgotten, secrets that may challenge everything we thought we knew about the Arathi Empire. Thousands of years ago, around the time of the Troll Wars, during a period when relations between the humans and the High Elves were at their strongest, a group of humans from Arathor and a group of High Elves from Quel'Thalas left the Eastern Kingdoms and set sail across the sea. Now, what set this expedition apart from others was that this journey was into uncharted waters. Our maps may not show the full expanse of Azeroth, and there are still undiscovered lands waiting to be explored. While much remains uncertain, it is rumoured that the Arathi settled on a landmass beyond the storming sea. This treacherous sea, long thought impossible to cross due to violent storms and monstrous creatures lurking in its depths, was clearly no match for the Arathi. They survived the journey and prospered in their new lands for thousands of years. Isolated from the rest of Azeroth, the humans and High Elves intermingled, giving rise to a unique race. The modern Arathi we've encountered in Khaz Algar do not consider themselves human, elf, or even half-elf or half-human. They simply identify as Arathi. Their appearance reflects this blending of bloodlines. Most resemble humans with slightly pointed ears, while others have more elven features and a few appear just fully human. What we have learned about the Arathi Empire is that it has remained a feudal autocracy, rooted in a deep faith in both their emperor and the light, which they worship as the sacred flame. The emperor, believed to have magic blood, receives prophetic visions from the flame, essentially showing the emperor visions of the future, and this allows them to safely guide the empire's growth and prosperity. The sacred flame, or the eternal flame as it's sometimes known, has foretold events that have pulled the Arathi from their distant land, placing them once again at the heart of Azeroth's unfolding future. More than a decade before current events, the Emperor of the Arathi Empire received a powerful vision from the sacred flame, foretelling light, battle, and victory for his people. In this vision, he saw a holy land and a radiant source of light. Referred to as the Emperor's vision, this light source was in the form of a falling or fallen star. Inspired by this revelation, the Emperor assembled the bravest and strongest of the Empire to embark on an expedition to seek out this mysterious land, fight in Renalash, secure the Emperor's vision, and return victorious. Renalash is said to be the ultimate conflict between the forces of light and the dark. General Vaelicia Steelstrike was chosen to lead the Arathi expedition, which consisted of the 3rd Fleet's airships, soldiers of the army, and members of the Church of the Sacred Flame. Accompanied by mages to establish portals for supplies and reinforcements, the expedition ventured past Titan's Isle and across the dangerous storming sea, enduring its fierce storms. As the Armada was on the brink of destruction during one final devastating storm, it was suddenly bathed in the holy light. In a flash, the light transported the entire fleet to Hallowfall, deep beneath Azeroth's surface in Khaz Algar. The Arathi fought to control their airships, but many perished as the 3rd Fleet crashed into the cliffs of the vast cavern. The eternal flame they carried with them was nearly extinguished, but a stowaway child managed to save a few embers. The crash claimed the lives of all of the expedition's mages, except for one apprentice, Faerin Lothar, who did not know how to open a portal back to the Empire. With no way to return home, the surviving Arathi settled in Hallowfall, beneath the radiant crystal they named Beledar, the fallen star of the Emperor's vision. The fertile land allowed them to build the holy city of Mereldar and established a new society. The remaining members of the Church of the Sacred Flame built the Priory to study the mysteries of Beledar. Beledar is more than just a source of light. It emits holy light, acting like an internal sun. For years, Beledar's light remained constant, until the Day of Darkness, when Sargeras plunged his sword into Azeroth. That day was the first time the crystal shifted, the light faded, and shadow took over. In present day, it periodically shifts into the void state known as Beledar's shadow, emitting corrupting shadow energy. These transitions can last from a few moments to several days, and during Beledar's shadow state, creatures like the Kobis, shadow elementals, and other monsters emerge to attack the Arathi, seizing the opportunity to strike during these dark periods. After the Day of Darkness, when Beledar's once consistent light began to falter, the shadow periods became extremely dangerous for the Arathi. In response, and true to the resourcefulness of their ancestors, the Hallowfall Arathi formed a cunning group known as the Lamplighters to protect their people during the perilous dark times. The Arathi constructed several dawn towers throughout the cavern of Hallowfall, functioning as lighthouse-like structures. These towers are designed to provide light when Beledar falls into darkness. The Lamplighters wield the sacred flame and are tasked with venturing into the shadows, keeping the dawn towers lit, protecting civilians, and rescuing those who become lost during Beledar's shadow. To keep the dawn towers ablaze, Lamplighters patrol Hallowfall on regular lamplighting routes. Led by Great Chiron, the Lamplighters are headquartered in Mereldar. One of the first Lamplighters we encounter is Faerin Lothar. Born into the noble Lothar family of the Arathi Empire, however, her relationship with her family had always been strained. Faerin wasn't originally part of the Hallowfall Expedition, but she stowed away to escape her family. When the expedition's airships were transported into Hallowfall, Faerin was trapped under rubble, losing her left eye and her arm. Despite her injuries, she risked her life to save the Eternal Flame by preserving its embers. General Steelstrike rescued her from the wreckage and told her that her decision to stow away made her a soldier, not a child. Mereldar's orphanage was built in part to accommodate Faerin, the only child in Hallowfall at the time, and she still visits whenever she can. Determined to meet Steelstrike's expectations, Faerin trained tirelessly to become as skilled as the rest of the Arathi army, learning to fight and care for herself with only one arm. We'll only briefly touch on the Arathi's role in the War Against Xal'atath, as we've already covered it in detail in a previous video, which you can access via a portal in the description below. When the champions of Azeroth arrive in Hallowfall under the leadership of Anduin Wrynn, they meet Faerin, who explains the origins of the Hallowfall Arathi. The group then encounters Great Chiron, leader of the Lamplighters, and helps him fend off an Erubian invasion. The champions go on to assist Faerin and the Arathi in defending their homeland from the forces of darkness, including that of the Kobis, various void entities, and of course the Nerubians during Beladar's shadow periods. They also aid the Arathi in their ongoing war against the Order of Night, once part of the Arathi that have now sworn allegiance to Xal'atath, and they seek to dominate Hallowfall. The champions help the Lamplighters keep the Dawn Towers lit, and eventually face off in an epic battle with the Order of Night's leader, as the nefarious group attempt to corrupt the eternal flame of Arathor in the Veneration Ground just outside of Mereldar. The Priory of the Sacred Flame, built as a place of worship for the Arathi, also becomes the site of the most recent confrontation with Xal'atath herself. In a surprising turn of events, those residing within the Priory of the Sacred Flame have gradually transformed into zealous fanatics, taking their mission to purify Hallowfall and their lands to dangerous extremes. The champions discover the Prioress Merprey believes that by raising the fallen Hallowfall Arathi into an army of the undead, they can swiftly achieve their goals in defeating the Nerubians, conquering Khaz Algar, and subjugating the world. This notion of using the holy light to cleanse the world of evil is far from new, something we've encountered before with the Scarlet Crusade. It's no coincidence that, like the Scarlet Crusade, these are light-wielding humans who have taken their pursuit of holy purification too far. Somewhere in their ancestry, they are undoubtedly linked to those who once pledged themselves to the Scarlet Crusade. Their enemies and methods may differ, but their underlying beliefs are eerily similar. There's still much to uncover about the modern-day Arathi, and while their noble heritage and ancestral ties to one of the greatest human kingdoms in Azeroth are undeniable, caution may be warranted. Though it's tempting to assume their intentions are pure, we must pause and consider whether it's wise to fully embrace a race that has been isolated for thousands of years. Will they continue to protect their holy land of Hallowfall and stand with the champions aiding the fight against Xal'atath? Or will their growing zeal and desire for purification become too overpowering, leading them to possibly embrace the void in pursuit of their divine mission? Only time will reveal the Arathi's true path.